Greetings, everybody. It's Jim. I'm pretty sure that most aficionados of the Fantasy Trip from Steve Jackson Games are aware of a company called Gaming Ballistic. Now, who Gaming Ballistic is a company that creates extra adventures and modules for the Fantasy Trip, which is great because, Steve's definitely working on the Fantasy Trip still. I mean, the proof is there that the game is growing in number and the demographic is actually getting younger. I mean, obviously, when they first came out on Kickstarter, all the old salts said, oh, yeah, nostalgia and stuff like that. But now it's getting, I can see the numbers and the people are curious about it getting younger and younger, and that's nice. Now, the thing is, even though Steve's definitely working on it, he has so many other irons in the fire, though, because he's got to work on Munchkin, he's got other games he's going to develop. I mean, they can only do so much so fast without losing quality, and doesn't want that. So it's nice to have another company who can also produce quality material. I mean, these guys have got authors like David Pulver, Christopher R. Rice, and the list goes on, right? So they're making some quality adventures here, and it's nice to do that in parallel, so more material comes out at a quicker rate, and it's definitely good stuff. I think they've made, over the last 2.5 years, 10 adventures for the Fantasy Trip, and this is just absolutely terrific. But the thing is, they weren't the first company to get a license for the Fantasy Trip. Not at all. There was a company called back when it started called Game Lords, and they had a few ideas. So today, I'm going to be talking to you about why you should be using the Forest Lords of Dihad from Game Lords. Now, if you want to do your part to help promote the kind of games that we talk about here at Castle Archon, by all means, like and subscribe. That simple action will cause the algorithms to go out, find other gamers, and say, hey, you might like this too. And the next thing you know, our numbers are increasing. I mean, more people are playing Harn World, the Fantasy Trip, historical wargaming, the list goes on. So if you want to help promote the games that you love, please like and subscribe. Now, the first thing I'll say about Game Lords, and I didn't realize this until I started doing some more research for this, because I didn't even know they created it. Because, on the back of this it says Metagaming. I just picked this up on a whim off of eBay. It was only like $12, $13. I'm like, okay, I'll get a little TFT history, right? But I found out it's a company called Game Lords, which is none other than the people who made the cult classic role-playing game Thieves Guild. All right, now people who liked this system loved it, okay? It wasn't for everybody, but people who knew liked the system. They liked the game. They liked the writing in it. It didn't have the greatest production values, but then again, neither does this. It was just producers what they could. It was more for the fact of getting it done than trying to be totally commercial. There's some love there for that. Now, the thing is, when it comes to the Forest Lords of Dihad, it was the first of what was supposed to be a 4-part series. All right, so let's take a look at the world setting right here. Here's the big map. And up at the top, you can see the principalities or the counties. You got Darak, Muipoko, if I said that right, Dihad, and Sukur. Now, Dihad, of course, is the one we're talking about today. But all this land was unified at one time, and it was just a king on his deathbed decided to split the lands up amongst his sons, and, of course, political intrigue ensues, right? Now, I'm going to go back to the map here. Look at the bottom left-hand corner. It says 62.5 kilometers. Now, why that is important is because, here you can actually go back and forth and have your political intrigue, but you don't have to wait 3 to 6 months or travel that long to worry about other kingdoms and stuff. You don't have to worry about waiting that long, and you can get to the point a little bit quicker without having to relate to suspension of disbelief things like they do in Game of Thrones, where all of a sudden the characters are here and at the end of the season they're over here. It's like, how'd you get there? Don't have to worry about here. But anyway, the first one was Forest Lords of Dihad, as we know, and then it was Warrior Lords of Darak, and that's where it stopped, unfortunately. Metagaming closed its doors. The Fantasy Trip was effectively no more. And of course, what they did, they were already working on more stuff, but they didn't want to lose it. So what they did is, and they couldn't use these anymore because this was all Fantasy Trip under license. So what did they do? Well, they said, well, let's just switch on everything over to Thieves Guild. And there we got City of, instead of the Muipoko, I think this might be the Muipoko one, City of the Sacred Flame. And then after that, Within the Tyrant's Demise. Actually, I kind of like these titles a lot better. But the idea, since they're source books, I guess the proper way would be doing the Forest Lords of Dihad kind of thing and going through all four. So I guess, even though I do like those titles a lot. But now let's go into the idea of why Forest Dihad, what you find when you read the Forest Lords of Dihad. Now, one of the things that most people will notice when going through the book is some of the old terminology that's not used anymore, whether it be a spell that doesn't exist or talents that have been broken up to other parts, such as warrior and thief. I mean, thief has been broken up now to pickpocketing, move silently, and so on, locksmithing and what have you. So I thought that was interesting. One thing of note was they took a whole page to dedicate to hunting and tracking. All right. So normally, we have the jobs table. We just roll once a week to see how well we did and what have you. This actually fleshed it out, so you actually have to go through the motions and play it out, which is kind of cool. I can see keeping people honest, and you're going to get a paranoid player that's going to be like, okay, when are you going to throw the troll at me, right? So I thought that was kind of cool. But they didn't do it for not a purpose. They didn't just do it to do it. They actually have a section about gargoyle hunting. Okay, now if you're familiar, gargoyles have gallbladders that are very useful for spell components and potions. All right, so they are sought after and hunted. Now the thing is that I found interesting is the Legacy Edition allows gargoyles to be player characters. Now I don't know if that was allowed in the old edition. But if that's new, that adds a different level of ethics into this whole idea. So that's interesting there. And one thing also about the Forest Lords of Dihad is they talk about technology just a little bit more. They tease us with some of that old technology talk. They don't go into it deeply, but I mean, the last time I seen something talk about it at all was basically Security Station. I mean, it blatantly talks about old buildings and ruins that basically is like a small future of our world today. They don't talk about it much in the Legacy Edition at all. Okay, they do it in this part of our artifacts, but that's it. And sometimes I really want to see something a little bit more on that. I hope I can find something that gets developed. Now, as far as the Warrior Lords of Durak goes, and I just went over this a little bit, but I noticed something right away. As the other book, Dihad, has hunting and tracking, they did a whole page on herding and horse breaking, of all things. Now, I thought that was interesting, but I'm wondering how you can actually use that every week. Like I said, I mean, hunting and tracking might be one thing, but herding and horse breaking? Wow, I mean, why not? It's cool. So you can use it at your leisure. But I think that was the idea, that every book would have a section that kind of expanded on some job tables, which I kind of liked. Now, this last part really did floor me, and I know that some of you aficionados out there that have been playing for decades, this is not going to seem that weird to, all right? But I think my reaction is going to be the same as people who have only ever played the Legacy Edition, okay? My version of the game when I played in the 80s was just melee. I never played Wizard or the advanced stuff or the role-playing game in the Labyrinth. All I had was melee. So my idea of character progression was being lucky enough to stay alive. You were godlike if you were actually lucky enough to get one attribute point increase, right? So imagine my eyes bulging out of my head when I see this. Oh my goodness. A 53-point character? My goodness gracious. I mean, they don't go past 36 really anymore, right? Maybe 40. I mean, I've seen maybe in that new character creation compendium that Gaming Ballistic has been putting out, I think I've seen a 41-point character. But for the most part, the way the experience points work now, I mean, you get about 4 or 5 attribute point increases, and then you're better off getting new skills, right? But this really says a lot about two things that I've seen in the Legacy Edition to explain it. One is I remember in the new Legacy Edition in the Labyrinth talking about 5 or 6 die skill checks, where I'm looking at my characters and I'm like, my 32 to 34 point characters, I'm like, why don't you just tell me I fail? And not only that, there were some sections in there that talk about you encounter 2d6 goblins or something like that, or 2d6 bandits, and I'm like, we're dead. That's it. We're at their mercy. Okay, why don't you just say we surrender, right? But here, you get that, and you're just like, oh, whatever. It's a day at the office. You're just slishing and slashing around. And I mean, I will say this. I mean, I understand why this was done. Because when you have 4 characters, they can go through a deeper dungeon this way. I mean, you really have to really make things happen to make a deeper dungeon in the Legacy Edition set. You got to do a few things. Like for instance, I have the ensemble adventure idea where a party is much bigger, or the cast members are much bigger, and like one group gets into a fight, they got to retreat, and then another one, you switch the scene and go off to another fight with another 4 adventures the next day or something like that. But this is where it's more traditional. 4 characters go down into a dungeon and they pop up for when they're good and ready. So it's a lot different than that. Now, the Warrior Lords of Durak seems a little harder to find, but the Forest Lords of Dihad is actually quite easy. You can find it on eBay for as low as $15 shipped to your door, but it gets better than that though, because I found, of course, unfortunately, after I bought this one on eBay, that Different Worlds Productions actually seems like they've got the rights to all the Thieves World stuff and this module. They don't have Durak that I'd seen, but this is only $4.95 on their website. Now, I have to see. I'll leave the link down below if it's there or not, because the website does look like it's from the year 2000. So, I mean, I paid through PayPal, so should be getting an email. I'm going to find out quick enough if they're still active or not. But definitely, if you can pick this up for $4.95, I'm going to leave a link down below. Again, folks, like and subscribe. That is the Forest Lords of Dihad, and I'll see you next video.